So there we've got a typical question. There's actually two questions on that page. The question 13.4 is how to explain the depreciation methods. Thank you, Jody. How to how those methods work. So we've discussed that last week, and it's in that recording that we've made available to you. So the one that we want to look at now is question number 13.5, where we also now have to go and calculate depreciation. So I'm only going to display this now for a short while. So perhaps you can look it up in your textbook. In any case, once we've read through this, I'm just going to open an Excel spreadsheet. I designed it earlier this morning, well, yesterday actually. I designed it yesterday afternoon, but I haven't programmed it yet because I want us to do it together, because that is how we're going to understand how those depreciation methods work. So here they say in this picture, or in this, yeah, it is actually a picture. Uh, on the 1st of January 20x6, let's call it 2016. On the 1st of January 2016, pigment manufacturers bought a vehicle for 40,000 Rand. So that we must now make a little note of. They bought it for 40,000 Rands. Then they say the vehicle is expected to have a useful life of 4 years and a residual value of approximately 8,000 Rand. So that we must now also keep in mind. An expected useful lifetime of 4 years and a residual value of 8,000 Rands. Now, what are we required to do? We've got to calculate the depreciation charge, but we're going to not only do that, we're also going to calculate the carrying amount for each year. So we are going to calculate the depreciation charge or depreciation expense for each of the 4 years. And we are also, like I said, going to calculate the carrying amount in each case, assuming, first of all, that the straight line method is used. And then secondly, assuming that the diminishing balance is used, and then they provide us with a rate of 33.33% there, 33.33% per annum. Now, just before we carry on, ladies and gents, let me just ask you a little question. Then I will also have an idea whether you've watched that recording of that I made last week. If they did not give you that 33.33%, if they only said that the vehicle is expected to have a useful life of 4 years, and you now need to convert that 4 years to a percentage per annum, how would you do that? Or maybe a short answer here. If it was for 4 years, what would be your depreciation rate per annum? So these are now two different examples. What would have been your diminishing balance depreciation rate if that only told you that the useful life is expected to be 4 years? 25%. Thank you, Jodine. Thank you, Annalisa. There we go, 25%. So we would have taken 100%, the full house, divided it by the number of years, 4 years, and we would have then said we are going to depreciate it by 25% per year. So that 33.33% is a completely different scenario. Just to maybe give another example, if they had mentioned that the expected useful lifetime is going to be, let's say, 10 years, then you would have converted that to a percentage or a depreciation rate of 10% per annum. In other words, 100 divided by 10 gives you 10% per annum. Okay, so now we must just remember these figures, and I'll probably forget them. So you must just remind me if necessary. I just want to go and open my Excel spreadsheet. And they are open. I've just opened another tab. Let me just go and find it. There it is. Ryan, could you repeat how you got the 25? Jodine and Annalisa actually got the 25, but yes, they were 100% correct, spot on. So if they say that the useful life is going to be 2 years, for instance, right? You expect to use it for 2 years, and you are going to be using the diminishing balance method for depreciation. Then you are going to say, right, the full house, a full 100% is 100, right? And you divide it by the number of years that you expect to use it, which is 2 in that case. That will give you 50. So you are going to use a depreciation rate of 50% per annum. If they say that you expect to use that vehicle or whatever asset it is for 3 years, you are going to take 100, divide it by 3, and you'll get 33 and a third percent per annum. If you are going to use it for, let's say, 5 years, right? Right now, you type for me. If they say the expected useful lifetime is going to be 5 years, what will be the percentage that you convert it to? What is going to be your depreciation rate per annum? 20, exactly. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Logan. Thanks, Nalindi. Okay, thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you, Jody. And Asisipo. 20, exactly right. So you get the idea. So even if they don't give you a depreciation rate, you can always convert the number of years to an appropriate depreciation rate. Okay, so now let me go find my Excel spreadsheet. There it is. Just going to wait until it comes up. There it is. Now my question here, is it large enough? Can you see what is typed there? You're welcome, Ryan. You're most welcome. Can you see? Otherwise, I'll have to oops. There I get a no. Then I'll have to go and reformat it. Then I'll just reformat it as we go along. Let me just see what else was typed there. You also say no. Thanks, Rose. I suspected this, but I didn't actually reformat it. So let us say, let's make all of this. It only goes up to there, but let us add a few lines. Let's make it 14. But now all my columns are not going to work out. I'll have to probably. Oh, it automatically no. I'll have to go and broaden the columns. Let's just see. Let me just also go and see what it looks like now. Does that help? Is it better, or must I make it even larger? No, Lindy, do you mean I must make it larger? It's better. It's better. Okay, thank you. So you can see it now. Yeah, it was only 11. I've made it 40 now. Better. Okay, thank you so much. Maybe I should change while I'm at it, while I have to format it anyway. I might as well change the font. That might also make it a little bit clearer. So I'm going to change that to Arial. Um, Arial. That also normally displays better. Let me just go and have a look what it looks like on your side. Yeah, I think that is now clear even to me that needs new glasses. So I think we can all see that now. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gents. So now we are going to first of all focus on the straight line method. So we are going to do the straight line method. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us now start with this with determining our depreciable amount. So, what did we say? What was the cost? What was the cost that was capitalized? We saw that that was an amount of 40,000 rands, right? 40,000. 40,000. Now I just want to make that a little bit larger. Okay, so the cost was 45,000 rands. What is the residual value? Let us go and have a look. Unfortunately, I can't jump between them at this stage. They say it has a residual value of 8,000. Thank you for helping out there. Uh, Thank you for all those answers. 8,000 rands. So the residual value is 8,000 rands. Oops, now I went to my Word document. 8,000. Now we've got to go and calculate the depreciable amount. Now, you remember we mentioned the other day that when it comes to the depreciable amount, it really reflects the value of or the portion of the cost that we are going to use up or exhaust by using this asset. So that will now simply be, it will be our cost of 40,000, which is in A4, minus the residual value, which is in B4. Right, so we see that our depreciable amount is 32,000 rands. So now we can copy that over, ladies and gentlemen. We now see that our depreciable amount that we need to write off over this useful lifetime is 32,000, and that is in C4. Right, so there we now have our depreciable amount. Now we've got to go and see what is the useful life. We can either use months or we can use years. So let us use years because they've given us it in years, but in that recording from last week, I actually did both. I used years and I also used an example by using months. So the useful life, let me just go check again. Where's that picture? Was 4 years, a useful life of 4 years. So now we can go and type in 4 there for us. You see, I heard a ping there. 4, thank you, Nalindi. Right, so 4 years. Now I've got to increase this again. Widen it, I should say. So what is going to be our annual depreciation? Our annual depreciation means what would the depreciation expense be if we had use of that particular asset for a full financial year? So that is going to be our depreciable amount, which is in A8, looks like. And we divide that by 4, which is in B8. So that gives us 8,000 rands a year. Let me just go to 8,000. Thank you all. That gives us, thank you for those answers. I appreciate them. So that gives us 8,000. Right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now we've got to go and decide for how many months during the course of this year did we actually have use of it. Now, if we looked at when we looked at that question, they said there that they bought that vehicle on the 1st of January 2016. They don't tell us when the financial year is, but in this case, we just assume that the financial year is the 31st of December. But in any case, we are going to program our sheet in such a way that if it had been for a portion of the year, we can still use our formula. Right, so there we are going to say the number of months available was 12. Was 12. So what is our depreciation for the year? I'll have to widen that as well. Depreciation for the year, it is going to be C8 So our annual depreciation multiplied by D8, the number of months that we actually had it available, divide by 12, the full number of years in a calendar year. Now, in this case, it also gives us 8,000 rands. But let's say now, for instance, that they mentioned that it was bought on the 1st of January, but that this business has a financial year end of, let's say, the 30th of June, just to illustrate. Then that would have been a 6, and your depreciation for the year would then be half of it. It'll only be 4,000. Or let's say, for instance, let me just see what is in the chat. 4,000. Thank you, Annalisa. Exactly. Or they could have said the business has a financial year end of the 30th of September. Then we know that we had use of it for 9 months. So then we'll put in 9 months there, and we'll see that our depreciation for the year will be 6,000 rands. Right. But anyway, I want to keep it at 12 so that we can see on which figure we will end our carrying amount with at the end of the full useful lifetime. So now we've got to go and see, and here's a little bit of a trick, ladies and gentlemen, and now be careful of this. I know students very often make this mistake, and it is a very common mistake. So this is one of the reasons why I'm using this Excel spreadsheet to demonstrate all of these calculations. Remember, our carrying amount is the cost less the accumulated depreciation, right? So now we must not make that mistake of using the depreciable amount here. We must use the cost, ladies and gentlemen. So our carrying amount is going to be the cost, which is in A4, the cost minus the depreciation for this year, which is in E8. Right, so coincidentally, in this particular case, the carrying amount at the end of the year will now be 32,000. But do not confuse this carrying amount with the depreciable amount. They're not the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. It is just a total coincidence that the carrying amount after the first year is now 32,000. Right, so it's completely a coincidence. So our carrying amount at the end of the first year is 32,000. So now let's go to the next year, ladies and gentlemen. Our depreciable amount remains exactly the same in the case of the straight line method. So our depreciable amount is going to remain at 32,000, right? No, that's not going to work. I'll have to paste it as a formula. Which one is that again? Not value, formula. There we go. No, that's not going to work. Let's paste the value. Anyway, you know where that comes from. We've already calculated that. The useful life remains 4 years, so that will be the same. The annual depreciation is going to be still the same. So we can just type 8 in there. And then our number of months is still going to be the same. Our depreciation for the year in this case is going to be the same. So it's still 8,000 rands. Right, so now we are there. Now to calculate our accumulated depreciation at the end of year 2, what do we have to do, ladies and gentlemen? We now have to go and take our cost less all the depreciation that we have written off over the useful lifetime to date. Right, so in this case, it is going to be the carrying amount at the beginning of the year, right? 32,000, so that is in T8, not T, sorry, I need new glasses, F8. F8 minus a further 8,000, and that is in E8. So after the second year, our carrying amount is going to be 24,000. Let me just see the. Thank you, Nolindi. Exactly, spot on. Maybe we can add another column here for the accumulated depreciation. I'm sorry that I'm going through this so slowly, ladies and gentlemen, but the whole point is that we want to do this whole exercise step by step. Uh, let's insert not a row, an entire column. So let us add here the accumulated depreciation. Just going to use abbreviation here, otherwise it's not going to, otherwise our screen is going to become off screen. Accumulated depreciation. So in this case it was 8,000. Right? And now our accumulated depreciation at the end of the second year, let us design a little formula for us there. I will go and update all these formulas later on. It is going to be E8 plus 9. E8 plus E9. Right, so, oops, equals E8 plus E9. 16,000, right? So now we can see the cost is still 40,000 rands, but we have written off 8,000 rands in year one, 8,000 rands in year two. So it means in total we've written off 16,000 rands, right? So our accumulated depreciation is 16,000. So our carrying amount is 24,000, right? So now let us go and look at the next year. We don't have to go and repeat all of these again, ladies and gentlemen. That first line was just for illustrating where those figures come from, that we know how to program it. So now we can just go and calculate our depreciation for the year. So this is going to be 8,000 rands again. Now accumulated depreciation at the end of this year is going to be, let's say, equals if 9 plus E n. Right, so now we've taken that 16,000 accumulated depreciation at the beginning of the year. We've got a further 8,000 rands depreciation during the course of this year, which means that our total accumulated depreciation is now 24,000 rands. So what is going to be our carrying amount? Our carrying amount is going to be the cost, which is A4, minus the accumulated depreciation, which is now in F10. Right, so it gives us a carrying amount at the end of the third year of 16,000. Right, so let us just do the last year as well for completeness sake. We're not going to go and copy all of those again. We know that is still going to be 80,000. That is why it's called the straight line method, because it is equal amounts that you write off each year. So our accumulated depreciation is now going to be what it was at the beginning of the year, which is in F10. What the balance was at the beginning of the year, we've got additional depreciation of 8,000 rands, or maybe I'll just program it. That is in E11. So we see that our accumulated depreciation is now 32,000. And I'm going to ask you something, ladies and gentlemen. What do you expect? What do you expect the carrying amount to be after 4 years if your residual value was 8,000 rands? What do you expect the carrying amount to be after 4 years? if your residual value was originally calculated as 8,000? What would you say? 8,000. Thank you, Jason. So that is, thank you, Namshla. 100% spot on. Right. So that is the whole point of using the straight line method, so that at the end of the useful lifetime, the value that you are carrying for that asset should be equal to the residual value, because that is what you expect to be able to sell it for. So let us just complete our calculation and make sure that we're not mistaken there. So that will be the carrying amount will be the cost, which was in A4, minus the accumulated depreciation, which is now in F11. Right, and voila, there we see it is actually 8,000. So our method, our straight line method, has achieved what it was supposed to do. Thank you for all those answers. You spot on. There's a lot of 8,000s there, spot on. So it has achieved its objective in providing us with a carrying amount that equals the residual value. So it means that in total, we have consumed 32,000 out of the total cost of 40,000 by using it, and that is represented by our accumulated depreciation. Okay, ladies and gents, let us just pause there for a little while. Any questions from all the answers I've seen there? I don't think there will be, but just in case. Okay, doesn't seem to be any questions. Now we are going to look at the diminishing balance method, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to ask you a few questions. Some of them will actually be trick questions, to be honest. Right. So what is the cost? What is the cost of this asset from the question that we've just seen? If you can type for me, what is the cost of the asset? 40,000. Thank you so much. So the cost is 40,000. Let us go type that in. 40,000. What is the residual value, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you for all those answers, but this was a trick question. This was a trick question. Do we take the residual value into account when we use the diminishing balance method? Yes or no? Nope. Thank you, Jason. Jody, nope. Exactly. Right. So in this case, we thank you, no, Lindy. No. So when we are using the diminishing balance method, ladies and gentlemen, that method provides us with an ongoing estimate of what the residual value is at any point in time. So at the end of year one, thank you, Annalisa and everyone. So at any point in time, if we apply that method, it'll give us a running tow, almost like a tally of what our expected residual value is at any point in time during the useful life, at the end of year one, at the end of year two, and so forth. Right. So let us now go and program this so that it illustrates it. You can see I've made a little arrow there, and the idea is just to type in there, not applicable in or under, let's call it under this method. Right. So right, so it's not applicable under this method. Oops, now I've actually made a mess of this. Let me undo that. Okay. So the residual value is not applicable if we are using this method. Okay, so now let's go and calculate it, ladies and gentlemen. What did we say in the very first year? Or let let us do it the tricky way, the long way around. I know you haven't got a class after this, so we're going to do the long way around. What was the carrying amount of this particular vehicle at the beginning of the first year? This is once again a trick question. Let me give you a warning there. Okay, this is a trick question. What is the carrying amount of this item at the beginning of the first year? The carrying amount, and thank you for those answers. I know what you are saying, but the carrying amount was actually zero. Okay, because we did not own this vehicle right at the beginning of the year. I know we bought it on the first day, or we could have bought it anytime during the course of the year, but 1 second after midnight on the 1st of January, we didn't own that vehicle, right? So it means that there was no opening carrying amount at the beginning of the year. So what we are saying, when we are using the diminishing balance method in the very first year, we are going to use the cost as its depreciable amount, right? The only reason for that is because there is no opening balance for our carrying amount at the beginning of the year, and the cost is still 40,000. That is now in 17A17. Right, so in the first year, we are using the cost. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are not looking at the useful life in terms of years. In this case now, we are going to use a depreciation rate. And the depreciation rate, we said, is 1/3. 33 and a third percent. So I'm just going to say 1 divided by 3. Right? Oops, no, that gives me a date. That is not what I want. Let us just say 0,333. Let's give it a lot of threes behind the zero, so that it is very close to exactly 1/3. There is going to be a few cents when it comes to rounding off. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we own it for a full year, what will be our annual depreciation? For a full year, it is going to be our cost, or the depreciable amount at the beginning of the year, which is equal to the cost of 40,000 Rand. So that is in A21. A21 multiplied by B21. Why am I getting that? Let me just think. Let me just see what it should be. 40,000 divided by 3 should be 133333. Now, why is it giving me? Let's see if you've got a hint for me there. Oh, I didn't press A21. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mahamba. I didn't notice that. And thank you for all those answers. Thank you very much. So let me just go and redo that. I'm so sorry. I know I need new glasses as well. I probably need a new brain too, it looks like. So that will be A21 multiplied by, what did we say, B21. Okay, thank you very much. Now we've got the correct amount there with a little bit of rounding off, right? So now we've got to go and see whether we have had the use of this vehicle for the whole year, ladies and gentlemen. In this case, we did, so we can make that a 12 number of months. So now we can go and calculate our depreciation for the year. So that is going to be the same as our annual depreciation, but not necessarily, because if we didn't have this for a full year, then we obviously would have had to apportion this. So let us formulate this correctly. So it is going to be our annual depreciation, which is in C21, multiplied by the number of months that we had it available, which is now in D21, and divided by the total number of months in a calendar year. So in this case, it'll give us 13,334 rands again. But again, the fact that we've programmed it, if for instance, we only had this vehicle available for 4 months, you can see it will adjust it, the figure for us. Or if we had it for 6 months, it'll, did I program this correctly? Let me just see, plus, no, I didn't formulate this correctly. I have a plus instead of a 21. Multiply. Okay. If we had it for 6 months, we see that the depreciation would have been half of that. If we had it for 4 months, for instance, we see that it'll be 4,444. But just for the purpose of this particular exercise, let's say it was for a full year, 12 months. Let me just copy that over. So now our accumulated depreciation is going to be that 13,333 rand. So that will be coming from E21. Now carrying amount is going to be the cost. Remember, we must use the cost, ladies and gentlemen. Fortunately, the cost is here in the first year as well. So it's going to be 821. Oops. Minus F21. Now, carrying amount at the end of the first year is going to be 26,666. Now, every subsequent year, we had to use the cost as our depreciable amount in the first year because we did not have an opening carrying amount at the beginning of the year. But for each subsequent year, ladies and gentlemen, we will have a carrying amount. And each subsequent year, we are going to use the carrying amount at the beginning of that financial year, right? The carrying amount at the beginning of the financial year as our depreciable amount. So to illustrate that, we are just going to simply say, what must we use there now as our depreciable amount? It is the carrying amount at the beginning of the year, which is the same as the carrying amount at the end of the last year. So that is in G21. So that is what is going to be our new depreciable amount. Our depreciation rate is still the same. That is going to remain the same. So our annual depreciation is now not going to be the same like in the case of the straight line method. Right. How did that become an 8? In the case of the straight line method, that would have been exactly the same every year, our annual depreciation and the depreciation expense, unless obviously if we have to apportion it for a part of a year. So now this is going to be different, ladies and gentlemen. This is now going to be the depreciable amount at the beginning of the year, which is A22, multiplied by our depreciation rate, which is in B22, and that gives us an amount of 8,888 rand. Okay, let us just perhaps just make this a little bit more logical. let's call it number, and only 2 decimals. Right, the 2 decimals makes more sense. Right, and again, in this case, it was for 12 months. So our depreciation for the year will be the same as the annual depreciation. So that is in C22. 8,888 rands and 89 cents. So now what is going to be our accumulated depreciation, ladies and gentlemen? It is going to be the sum total of the depreciation for the 2 years. So it is going to be E21 and E22. I know I can use the auto sum. I realize that, ladies and gentlemen. I know I can use auto sum, but I want to do this, like I said, step by step. So that we can follow it exactly. So now what is going to be our carrying amount at the end of the second year? It is going to be the carrying amount at the beginning of the year, right? The carrying amount at the beginning of the year, which is, well, we can either use A32, A22, I should say, but just for the sake of our logic, let us rather use the closing balance, which is in G21, right? So this will now be G21 plus E22. So our total accumulated depreciation is now the sum of those two, which is, sorry, our carrying amount is now, oops, let me just see, what did I just do? I typed a plus instead of a minus. I'm sorry. Let me just see whether I've now gone through this correctly. Let me start afresh. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. So that our accumulated depreciation is 22,222. So this will be the carrying amount. Sorry, I got confused with the accumulated depreciation at the carrying amount. So the carrying amount will be the cost at the beginning of the year, which is in A21. A21 minus our accumulated depreciation, which is now in F22. Right, so that gives us 17,777. Is that correct? Let me just see. 40,000. A21 is 40,000. Less the accumulated depreciation. Yes, that is correct. Okay. So now that gives us 17,777 rands, right? And now that, let me just see in the chat. Sisipu, thank you for those answers, students. Maybe just please explain again how you got second year accumulated depreciation. Okay, the second year accumulated depreciation. The second year accumulated depreciation, what we do, remember, accumulated depreciation in essence means it is the total of all your depreciations that you have written off over the useful lifetime to date, thus far, in other words, right, Sisipo? So now we've got to go and see how much depreciation have we written off in total so far. So in the first year, we wrote off depreciation of 13,777. 333 rands. Right, so that is the expense, the depreciation expense in the first year. In the second year, our depreciation expense is 8,888 according to our calculation, which means you simply now have to go and add those two figures together. Right, your depreciation for year one plus your depreciation for year two, and that gives you your accumulated depreciation at the end of year two. Does that help? Does that help? Okay, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. Thank you for that question. I'm sure a few other students had it as well. Now we go to year three, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you can type for me, what is going to be our depreciable amount for year three? If you can type that for us first, and then we will go and do our programming there. What is going to be our depreciable amount that we are, which amount are we going to use? Thank you, Nolindi. Thank you, SK2. Thank you, Under the Seaway. Okay, thank you all, ladies and gents. Spot on. So you get the idea. The carrying amount at the beginning of the year, which is the same as the carrying amount at the end of the previous year, is now going to be used as your depreciable amount. So that now comes from G22. 17,777. Our depreciation rate is still the same. So now we simply have to go and see what is going to be our annual depreciation. So that is going to be A23 multiplied, let me not type a plus again, multiplied by B23. 5,925. Right, 5,925. Thank you, Annalisa, for confirming. So there we have it. We assume that it was still available for the full year. And we know that if you are using the time-based methods, such as diminishing balance method, as well as the straight line method, then we never stop the depreciation process until such time as we derecognize it. Right. So our depreciation for the year will be the same as the annual depreciation, which is in C23, 5,925. And now we've got to go and see what is our accumulated depreciation. Right. So in this case, let me see if I can use the, you've got the idea now. So we might as well go and do the auto sum. Right. So how we now calculate the accumulated depreciation here, for everybody who does not know, it is the depreciation in year one, which was at 13,333, the depreciation in year two, which is the 8,888, and the depreciation in year three, which is 5,925. Let me just go to the chat. Oh, you've already given me the the carrying amount. Thank you, Sisipu. Thank you, Annalisa. You're way ahead of us. Okay. So now it's just a matter of going to calculate our carrying amount. So our carrying amount is the cost. So that we have in A21 minus our accumulated depreciation, which is now in F23. 11,851. Let me see. Thank you, Nalindi. You've already got the figure. 11,851 rands 85. Yolandi, yes, you will disclose it. You will throw away the cents when you disclose it. So as Nalindi says there, it's going to be 11,852 when you do your financial statements. Okay, so there's just a 1 year to go. Let us finish that as well. So I don't have to ask you again. You know that our depreciable amount at the beginning of the year is going to be the carrying amount at the end of last year, which equals the carrying amount at the beginning of the year. So that is going to be coming from G23. 11,851. Our depreciation rate remains the same. So our annual depreciation is going to be A24 multiplied by E24. 3,950. We still at it for the full year, so that we can just copy over. C24. 3,950. So now we can go and add up our accumulated depreciation, which is simply the total of all our depreciation expenses for the full time that we have been at this asset available for us. So let us just go and do an auto sum again. So it'll be the sum of all of those individual depreciation expenses for the year, which gives us 32,098 rands. Right, ladies and gentlemen, so now it's just a matter of looking at what the carrying amount is. And the carrying amount is again the cost, which we have in A21, minus the accumulated depreciation, all the depreciation expenses for all the years so far, which we find in F24, is 7,901. 7,901. Thank you, Nalindi, for confirming that. So now we can see that the carrying amount here is actually pretty close to the 8,000 rands that we expected if we should have used the straight line method. But anyway, the last point that I want to make, ladies and gentlemen, or 2 points actually, and this is in your textbook. I know I've read it the other day. They mention it there that the diminishing balance method is a very appropriate method for motor vehicles. And I think I actually mentioned this last week as well, because as soon as that motor vehicle has been purchased, it is a second-hand motor vehicle, right? So it loses most of its value right at the beginning of its useful lifetime. And this is what this diminishing balance method provides us. It lost the value of 13, which is 1/3, obviously, of 13,300 of the 40,000 in the first year. But thereafter, it doesn't lose its value that quickly. It actually slows down. It slows down over the years. In 50 years' time, when it's a vintage vehicle, its value will start rising again. But I'm just I'm just saying that tongue in cheek. So this is not going to become a vintage vehicle. So we see the depreciation process slows down as the years go by. Whereas if we are using the straight line method, the depreciation is actually equally each financial year. Then the other last point that I just want to make is if you look at the carrying amount, what this diminishing balance method provides us with, and I know I've said this quite a few times, but now we can see it here for ourselves. It provides us with an estimate of the residual value or salvage value or scrap value, what we can sell it for at each of those stages. So at the end of year one, if we had wanted to sell that motor vehicle, we would have expected to more or less get 26,667 rands for it. If we had been intending to sell that vehicle at the end of the second year, we would have expected to get about 17,777 for it. if we are going to sell it at the end of the third year, we would have expected to sell it for about 11,800, and if we are going to sell it at the end of the fourth year, we would have expected it to be to get about 7,900 for it, right? Okay, ladies and gents, I know I've gone over time a bit. My apologies for that. I really, I sort of expected it, so it doesn't come as a surprise. So I just want to check from your side, are there any questions on any of these methods or anything else that we've discussed today? In last week's recording, I also discussed the usage method, but you won't get questions on that. Perhaps from next year we should implement that now that I think about it. But in any case, let us see if you've got any questions. I'll take that as a no. Then I bid you good day. Have a lovely afternoon further and have a lovely evening. Then we'll speak again soon. So we will carry on with property, plant, and equipment. We will start looking at the property, plant, and equipment note, how we disclose it, how do we compile that note, where do we get the figures from. So we are going to use another question for that purpose. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye bye.